going on? What's your emergency?
Ma'am, this is Conroe Everett. Just came home. My wife and I have been up to a little meeting at the bank, and my son was here eating his dinner and checked on him. He's not here. I answered the phone, and sounds like a lady on the other end telling me that they kidnapped my son and they want $500,000 ransom money.
Former police officer and family friend accused of kidnapping.
In my heart, I know you'll never harm my son. You loved him like your son. You gave him his ball. He called you Uncle Hilty.
I will not stop until we have the truth about everyone's involvement.
It had to be somebody that we knew.
This is Paulette and Carl. They met each other through Paulette's sister, who was dating Carl's friend. Paulette and Carl end up getting married in 1971. They both graduated college in Mississippi. By summer of 1978, they moved from Mississippi to Texas to start brand new lives and find good paying jobs. Eventually, Carl ended up working in the oil and gas industry. Paulette worked as a school teacher and later started getting into other jobs like the oil and gas industry and remodeling and building homes. By this time, they were living in Conroe, Texas. On March 1st, 1983, the Everetts end up having a baby boy, and he was named Samuel McKay Everett. The Everetts were grateful that God has given them a child, as Paulette was struggling to have one, and then she almost died in childbirth. So McKay was their one and only child. The Everetts made lots of great memories with McKay. Tons of family events, trips, birthdays, Christmas, you name it. McKay was living the dream. He was loved deeply by his parents, relatives, and even family friends. McKay had a great childhood growing up. That was until the night of September 12, 1995. Carl and Paulette had a business meeting in Conroe that night at 8 p.m. Carl was out of town, and he was going to meet his wife there. McKay is 12 years old and didn't want a babysitter. He thought he was old enough to stay home by himself. His mother, Paulette, told McKay to lock all the doors and turn on the alarm system when she left, which he did. Carl and Paulette had planned for extra security in the home. There was an alarm system. Utilities were away from the house so that they could not be dismantled. There was a secret room, and so on. Right before Paulette left, she handed McKay a flashlight, just in case if the power went out, as it was a rainy night. Paulette said goodbye to McKay, and she looked out the car window, and you could see McKay watching TV with his feet propped up on the ottoman, eating ice cream out of the container. just enjoying himself. By this time, it's around 8:20 p.m., and Carl called McKay to see how he was doing, and McKay responded with, "Good." McKay then ends up calling Elizabeth, who is possibly his girlfriend or friend. McKay talks to Elizabeth for maybe 2 minutes, and that's when McKay hears someone at the door. McKay tells Elizabeth hold on and that he will be right back. McKay sees Hilton and wonders, what is he here for? Now, here's where things get tricky. I don't know if McKay turned off the alarm system and unlocked the door for Hilton immediately, or if Hilton talked to McKay through the door and somehow convinced McKay to turn off the alarm system, unlock the door, and open up the back door to talk to McKay face to face about something very important. Now, what exactly Hilton told McKay, I'm not really sure. But one topic that the FBI posed is that Hilton possibly told McKay that his parents were in a horrible car wreck and that McKay needed to be there now, and that he, Hilton, would get McKay to his hurt parents. By this time, it's around 8:33 to 8:40 p.m. McKay and Hilton are in the car. McKay leaves in his socks, with no shoes on, thus the police assessment of urgent for McKay to make a decision to leave. While Hilton is backing out the Everett's driveway really fast, the neighbor across the street is taking out his trash and almost got hit by a gold Chrysler car. Bill, the neighbor who was taking out the trash, sees an emblem that says Crown Motor on the very back of the trunk of the car and watches the car speed off down the road. Bill, the neighbor, did not see who was driving the car, nor did he see McKay. You said this was the last photo that was taken. Was this when he was getting ready? Was this when McKay was getting ready to go to school?
Yep.
That morning?
Yep.
After the meeting was over, Carl, Paulette, and a few friends from the Amway meeting decides to grab a coffee at the Village Inn restaurant before heading home. This is when Carl calls McKay again, but this time, no answer. Well, another 30 minutes go by or so, and Carl calls again, and still no answer. By this time, it's around 10 or 11 p.m. Carl leaves the restaurant and tells his wife that he's going to check up on McKay and that you stay and finish and ride home with the neighbor. When Carl gets home and gets out of his vehicle, he noticed the back door of the house is open. Carl is yelling for McKay, and there is no response. Moments later, Carl receives a phone call. Carl answers it, and there is a woman on the phone that says,
"We have your son. If you want to see him alive again, bring me $500,000. And do not call the police. I will call you again tomorrow at 8 a.m. on where to bring the money."
911, what's your emergency?
Ma'am, this is Carl Everett. I live out on Long Mile Road.
Uh-huh.
And I just came home. My wife and I have been up to a little meeting at the bank.
Right.
and my son was here eating his dinner. And I just got home about 10 minutes ago and the phone was ringing because I called from earlier to check on him.
Right.
And I come through the door and the phone's ringing. And he's not here. I answer the phone and sounds like a lady on the other end telling me that they kidnapped my son and they want $500,000 ransom money.
Okay, sir. What's the address there?
Prior to McKay's kidnapping, someone's alarm system in the neighborhood went off and a police officer was dispatched to the area. The officer had came knocking at the Everett's door. Well, McKay wouldn't even open the door to talk to the police officer. So McKay talked to the officer through the door. McKay was cautious that he thought he could trust Hilton Crawford. Once on the road, Hilton stopped off at a gas station to get gas before hitting the road to Louisiana. Sometime down the road, I think Hilton Crawford calls Irene Flores and possibly says something that caught McKay's attention. McKay started asking Hilton questions. This possibly got Hilton really nervous and scared. Hilton then pulls over somewhere on the side of I-10 in Louisiana and puts him in the trunk of his gold Chrysler. While all of this is going on, McKay is fighting for his life. McKay noticed what was going on. He started screaming, yelling, did anything he could to get out of that trunk. McKay was fighting for his life. He removed the gaskets from inside the trunk. He did anything and everything, hoping someone would hear him screaming. The FBI stated that if McKay had 10 more minutes, he would have freed himself from the trunk. Hilton hears McKay making a lot of noise in the trunk. Hilton starts getting really nervous and thinks if anyone hears him screaming while on the road, that he'll get caught and go to jail. This is when Hilton either abandons the ransom plan or files into a fit of rage, and things went south. Hilton pulls over and pulls out what I think is a large metal flashlight, opens up the trunk, hits McKay really hard in the head, which knocks McKay out. The hits were so brutal that it caused McKay's skull to break, and McKay started bleeding. From here, Hilton drove out to Whiskey Bay, exit 127, that is right off the Atchafalaya Bridge in Louisiana. When Hilton got there, Hilton pulled down a dead-end road that was unpaved, opened his trunk, took McKay's body out, and dragged his body through the tall grass. Hilton shot McKay once in the neck and once in the chest. Hilton then got in his car and drove off, leaving behind McKay's body in the swamplands of Louisiana. All the while, Hilton was talking to Irene Flores, the ransom demand caller, and his wife, Connie Crawford, also known as Concetta Parigi. Hilton had his cell phone, Connie's cell phone, and his work pager. Phone call records show that Hilton Crawford called home numerous times. Eventually, Connie admits to authorities that she had talked to Hilton while Hilton had McKay. Hilton arrives at the hotel in Texas around 4 a.m. in the morning and checks out at 7:33 a.m. Hilton then arrives at Billy Allen's storage facility to clean out his car, remove unwanted items, one of them being Hilton's gun, .45 caliber pistol. The trunk mat was removed and burned because of McKay's blood. Billy Allen was there helping Hilton, and Hilton makes up a fake story of why there's blood in the trunk, and of course Billy Allen plays along with it. Hilton then calls a local car dealership and asks a few questions. Can you replace the lining in the back of my car? And how do you remove an emblem on the back of the car? Hilton then heads to the dry cleaners and tells one of the workers that he needs his shirt cleaned. The worker took his shirt and noticed what looked to be bloodstains on it. Hilton then starts making phone calls asking employees to give him an alibi. They all refuse to help him. This made Hilton very upset and nervous. Keep in mind, all of this is happening in the morning hours of September 13, 1995. Hilton then calls the Everetts and says,
Hello?
Carl?
Yeah.
Hilton, what the world's going on?
Hey, Hilton. I don't know. I'm trying to find my son this morning.
I called Connie this morning about 6 o'clock. What the hell happened?
Somebody kidnapped him last night.
Are you serious?
Yep. Where you at?
I had a meeting in Silsbee this morning, and I'm heading back that way right now.
Come see me after a while.
I'm coming to your house. I'm coming straight there.
All right. See you later.
The phone call between Hilton and Carl didn't last long, as the Everetts and the FBI were waiting for a phone call back from the ransom caller on where to leave the ransom money. Paulette knew something was horribly wrong when they didn't get the phone call. Well, Hilton Crawford was arrested on the morning of September 15, 1995 at his home. How did the FBI know it was Hilton? The police told the Everetts to write down the names of people who McKay would open the door for. Well, remember when Hilton was backing out of the Everett's driveway? The neighbor, Bill, across the street, told the Everetts that he was taking out the trash that night, and a gold Chrysler almost hit him. Bill also stated that he saw an emblem that said Crown Motor on the back of the car. The Everetts knew someone who owned a gold Chrysler. Carl had a flashback. Just weeks before McKay went missing, Carl and McKay was at Hilton's house playing basketball, and Carl noticed a gold Chrysler in Hilton's garage, and he also saw Crown Motor. Carl and Paulette knew someone who drove that car, and everything lined up perfectly. Miss Paulette was told that Hilton Crawford fainted when he was arrested. Hilton admits to kidnapping McKay, but refuses that he murdered McKay.
At nighttime came, and I drive over. He was there in front of the jewelry store. He wasn't in the vehicle. He was just there by himself. And he had a duffel bag with him. On the way over there, he opened up that duffel bag, and he had a policeman's shirt. Also in the duffel bag, he had a hood. He walked up to the door. He rang the doorbell. McKay came out the door, and then I saw McKay go back, turn the alarm off, and McKay opened the door. He took that hood out of the pocket. He put it over his head, and I turned in, and I popped open the trunk, threw McKay in the trunk.
Was McKay struggling?
Yeah, it looked like it. We heard some noises on the back of the
Start is to go ahead and begin with how you began planning this particular incident.
I had a horse that was off to the races. I went to the lower level there of Louisiana Downs. A couple of guys walked up to me. This guy said, R.L. Remington. He said, like R.L. Remington, sometimes around June, out of the blue, we were talking. They said, well, if you ever get interested, let me ask Mike. But, he called back one day and he told me about how you could kidnap somebody and make a couple $100,000. What he was saying, and it started kind of growing on me. I said, but I don't know. But I said, it sounds good. I said, well, I got this friend of mine. He said, you got a son that I know pretty well off. He said, I said, they have a meeting Tuesday night.
Come to find out, R.L. Remington's story was made up. The next day, Carl told Paulette to go to Connie's sister's house, which is where Connie is at, and tell Connie to bring herself and her 2 boys to the county jail. That is where Hilton was held. Paulette was told by Connie not to leave the jail until she had a map of McKay's location. At this point, no one knew if McKay was dead or alive. Yet Connie was screaming at Paulette,
McKay is dead. McKay is dead. I know he's dead. Hilton hired a hitman.
This was a big indicator that the Crawford family were a family of crime. Connie Crawford was the first person to state that McKay was dead. Hilton drew a map that led authorities to McKay's body. McKay's body was located right off of exit 127, Whiskey Bay. That is at the exit of the middle of the Atchafalaya Bridge in Louisiana. Disturbing photos of McKay's skull showed that he was possibly bludgeoned by a big metal flashlight moments before he was shot twice, once in the neck and once in the chest. Shortly before McKay being abducted, terrorized, and murdered, Hilton and his wife Connie had been shopping for a luxurious home in an exclusive lake neighborhood. They told the realtor that they were coming into some money and they wanted to move to Bentwater, a luxurious neighborhood on the water. In 1996, Hilton Crawford was found guilty of capital murder. Irene Flores, who made the ransom call that night, received 23 years in prison and was released in 2018. Irene Flores is free after being in prison twice, once for drugs and the second time for an involvement in abduction and murder of McKay. On July 2nd, 2003, Hilton was given a last meal: 12 beef ribs, 3 enchiladas, chicken fried steak with creamy gravy, a crispy bacon sandwich, ketchup, a loaf of bread, cobbler, french fries, onion rings, 3 Cokes, and 3 root beers. I'm not sure why he ordered all that food, or even if he got everything he wanted. I personally believe that Hilton should not have been given a last meal for what he did. It's like he's being rewarded for something really good. But he killed an innocent 12-year-old boy just so he could get himself out of debt. Yet, his plan failed. On July 3rd, 2003, Hilton was placed in the execution chamber at 6 p.m. Paulette attended the execution. Someone in the chamber asked Hilton if he had any last words, and he said this: "First of all, I would like to ask Sister Teresa to send Connie a yellow rose. I want to thank the Lord Jesus Christ for the years I have spent on death row. They have been a blessing in my life. I have had the opportunity to serve Jesus Christ, and I am thankful for the opportunity. I would like to thank Father Welsh for having become a Franciscan and all of the people all over the world who have become my friends. It has been a wonderful experience in my life. I would like to thank Chaplain Lopez and my witnesses for giving me their support and love. I would like to thank the nuns in England for their support. I want to tell my sons I love them. I have always loved them. They were my greatest gift from God. I want to tell all my witnesses, Tanny, Rebecca, Al, Leo, and Dr. Blackwell, that I love all of you and I am thankful for your support. I want to ask Paulette for forgiveness from the heart. One day, I hope you will. It is a tragedy for my family and your family. I am sorry. My special angel, I love you, and I love you, Connie. May God pass me over to the kingdom shore softly and gently. I am ready. At 6:19, Hilton was pronounced dead by lethal injection at the Walls Unit in Huntsville, Texas. Hilton was 64 years old.
In my heart, I know you'll never harm my son. You loved him like your son, because you gave him his ball. He called you Uncle Hilty. I still love you as I talk to you right now. But help me get my son back. I don't know what else I can tell you other than I'd love to bring this ball down and take you with me and go out and wherever McKay's at and let's go play ball with him this afternoon. That's what I'd love to do right now. And Hilton, all it is a decision on your part.
This man was loved and deeply trusted by the Everetts, especially McKay. McKay and Hilton bonded really well together. McKay went as far as calling Hilton Uncle Hilty. At one point, Hilton Crawford taught Little League Baseball as a coach, and he was also a police officer at one point. Connie Crawford taught first grade across the hall from Paulette. Shouldn't all of us be able to trust a prior police officer and a first grade teacher? What made Hilton want to do this in the first place? Well, it all started when Hilton wanted Carl to invest in Hilton's restaurant business. And Hilton needed to see the Everett's financial statements. Paulette told Carl not to do that. Well, Carl went behind his wife's back and gave their financial statement to Hilton. Once Hilton saw how much was in their bank account, this possibly triggered something in the back of Hilton's mind. Hilton was already in debt. He owed around $300,000. And on top of that, Hilton was going to use a part of that $500,000 of ransom money to buy a brand new house for him and his family. How did Hilton get so far in debt? Hilton had a gambling addiction problem. After the execution, you would think that this would be the final chapter. Nope. There's more. During Hilton's trial, Paulette and Carl were called to come in by investigators from the FBI. The FBI showed the Everett's documents concerning the Crawford family and their friends. Come to find out, the Crawfords and their friends, like Billy Allen and his family, were already under FBI investigation. The FBI told the Everetts to read all the documents that were laid out and to see how bad these people are, that they were involved in the case, and how evil the people were and were involved with the Crawford family. Paulette and Carl were shocked at how evil they were. On the night of McKay's kidnapping, the police questioned Connie about a golden Chrysler that was registered in her name. Connie lied and said something on the lines of, "I don't know anyone who owns a car like that." Hilton Crawford used his wife's personal car to abduct McKay. On the night McKay was taken, Carl begged Connie for Hilton's phone number. Carl was naive, thinking because Hilton was a prior law enforcement, Hilton could locate McKay. Carl thought Connie, being a school teacher, would do anything in her power to protect a child. Carl was wrong. Connie knew that McKay was kidnapped by Hilton and didn't want to speak to anyone about it. The morning after McKay's abduction, Connie gave Bill Allen Hilton's phone number so that Hilton could hide the evidence the very next day. This is the number Carl had begged her to give it to him. Billy Allen helped hide evidence from a prior crime of mail and insurance fraud and hid and destroyed evidence from McKay's abduction and murder. The Crawford family had a history of crime, but the community was unaware. All along the way, Connie Crawford, also known as Concetta Parigi, covered up for Hilton. Why would she do that? She was a first grade teacher. Even when Connie Crawford was questioned, the sheriff at the time said Connie would plead the Fifth Amendment instead of answering the questions. At a deposition, Connie Crawford admitted to talking to Hilton Crawford while Hilton had McKay. Why would a wife cover for her husband in a situation like this? My only thoughts are that she was buying her husband time to hide a child or a dead child's body. Later, it was discovered that Connie Crawford was trying to establish her an alibi by calling the home of a coworker. The coworker, a first grade teacher, was married to a DEA agent who recognized Connie's call. Was an effort to establish an alibi. Seems like the Crawfords needed an alibi. This DEA agent wrote an affidavit to that effect that Connie Crawford established an alibi, and to the DEA agent delivered the affidavit to the Montgomery County District's Attorney Office. Connie Crawford, also known as Concetta Parigi, passed away while in her involvement in aiding and abetting in the abduction and murder of McKay was in the cold case review by the Montgomery County Sheriff's Department. During the cold case review, it was discovered that the DEA agent's affidavit was missing, and a nude photo of Connie Crawford was missing from the files in the district attorney's office. Hilton Crawford carried around a nude photo of Connie Crawford in his business casual briefcase. No one in the authorities seemed to have any explanation for the missing evidence on Connie, nor is there any paper trail as to why the evidence would be destroyed or removed. It is concerning that evidence is not respected. Why are some things handled willy-nilly? Both Connie and Hilton Crawford could have received 5 years in federal prison for mail fraud insurance. Fraud in a scheme to steal their own personal jewelry and personal car, and filling an insurance claim. The insurance claim was approximately $40,000. Connie was known to wear some of the stolen jewelry to school. When questioned by other teachers, she would make up an excuse. The school district swept the thief of the car and the jewelry from the school parking lot under the rug. If the Crawfords had been exposed for this crime, the community would have been alerted to stay away from the Crawfords. And McKay could still be alive. Instead, Conroe ISD swept the case under the rug. How do we know this? A Conroe ISD security officer gave the info to the Everett family to this effect. The security officer stated that they had expressed a concern that there was more than the stolen car and its contents and should be thoroughly investigated. The security officer was ignored. Remember when McKay was screaming in Hilton's trunk? Mr. Carl asked Connie, "Why did Hilton Crawford hurt my son?" Connie's response was the matter of fact with no evident emotion when Connie said, "McKay got too loud." What did Hilton and Connie Crawford expect of a 12-year-old child who was taken from his mom and dad? My God, who are these people who were a prior police officer and a first-grade teacher? Life was never the same after the death of their one and only son, Samuel McKay Everett. Carl and Paulette end up going their separate ways. On April 1st, 2011, Carl Everett died of a heart attack and was buried next to his son. One of the Everett's closest friends said, "Carl was never the same after losing his son. He was very sad and broken. He never recovered after McKay's death." Miss Paulette is still here sharing the story so that you will know to guard your hearts, protect your children, and to let you know that even those you think can be trusted need to be watched carefully.
McKay was 12 and a half years old in 1995, and on September the 12th, McKay was home. We were a couple of miles away, and the husband of a first grade teacher that I'd had taught with came to the back door and deceived, lied, abducted McKay. At some point, McKay was put in the trunk of the car that he was driving and driven to the swamp in Louisiana. And somewhere along the way, McKay was bludgeoned. And then McKay was dragged through the swamp and then shot. And he was left there. And then from that point, it began to unfold as to who was involved. There was a ransom demand for McKay's life. We never received the phone call back where to deliver the money. And McKay's body was located and recovered. McKay was taken on a Tuesday, and then that next Sunday, McKay's body was located. Hilton Crawford and Irene Flores were arrested. Irene Flores is the person who made the ransom demand call. There were others involved and that were not prosecuted. I still fight that battle 29 years later to have them be held accountable. And hopefully that will come to pass soon. And, it still seems like this couldn't have happened. 29 years later, I still wake up and go, what in the world happened? It's been the most difficult part is to realize that a group of adults, a teacher and her husband and a ransom demand person and a person who hid evidence and destroyed evidence. These are all adults, how they could gang up on a little boy. It is evil. All those involved are evil people. We need to hold people accountable for how they treat children.
I agree.
So I always tell someone, if you want to get on my bad side, how you treat children, the elderly, the handicapped, and the innocent animals, that can get you on my bad side really quick. Because I do have that boundary of, I don't want to be around people who mistreat. And had I ever known these people that I worked with, and by association of that work, and they would be covering for this crime in any manner whatsoever. If anyone had ever come to me and said, Carl's dad, McKay's dad's name was Carl, and they had said, Carl's truck was seen leaving the house, and now there's a child abducted, I would have said, here's his sock drawer, here's the underwear drawer. Now, whatever else do you want me to tell you? What do you need? Because I would not cover. But Hilton Crawford's family covered and covered and covered and enabled and enabled and enabled and bought him time. And when you buy someone time when they have abducted a child, there's only two reasons you're buying time. To buy him time to hide a little boy or hide a little boy's body. It's been a nightmare. I've walked through hell. Our time on earth for children should be a blessed time. It should not be what McKay went through. No child should go through that. One FBI agent told me one day while they were still looking for McKay, and he said, there is an evil that walks this earth that is beyond our comprehension. McKay was a lively, healthy little boy who loved people and loved his friends and was a very kind person, very trusting. I'm still 29 years later advocating for my son who's in a grave and in a little box of ashes upstairs. McKay's ashes that were discovered after we had the burial at the cemetery. Some of his remains. So we had to have them cremated. Called one day and we were told, we found some of McKay's remains that we didn't send you. And so we had already had the burial service, and so we had to decide, what do we do with these? And I remember thinking, what else are we going to have to deal with? Isn't it bad enough that we had to bury our child? Now we're getting a call that part of his remains were on a shelf in a forensic lab in Louisiana. What, where's that? Where's enough? And here, 29 years later, I'm dealing with pressing for another person to be held accountable. And I stand by that, because if we can't hold people accountable for how they treat children, we're in a mess. If decent people don't stand up and speak up, it will only get worse. You have to stand up against evil.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
We cannot be passive with that. We have to take a stand. We are not going to hurt our children in this country. And if you do, even if it's enabling or an aiding and abetting, you will be punished. And sometimes I'm not sure what the best punishment is, but punishment doesn't seem to deter evil. Once someone hatches that plan, that evil plan, then they allow themselves to be taken over by evil, and they just go for it. They don't think about consequences. And the reason that they wanted money, that the Crawford family wanted money, is because they wanted a new house. Because they were looking at a new house in a little more upscale neighborhood than where they lived. I was told people like that are cold-blooded, and that they are nothing more, that when we run into them, that we should know they're like a crocodile. They have no conscience. They'll do anything. They don't care. They don't care who it hurts. They just don't care. They have in their mind what they want. But when you set out to be so destructive, and when we go down an evil path, I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's me or you or who. Anything done in darkness is going to come to light.
Agreed.
You're not going to get away with it. You're not going to get away with it. So why spend your time plotting and planning to do evil when you could use the same amount of time
to do other things,
to do good?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we need. We need more people. And we need, if someone is like this, they certainly don't need to be roaming around the populace or teaching school or any job where they could hurt someone or use their predatory instincts for evil. And what I realize now, it doesn't matter what profession or who the person, what race, what culture, whatever, anyone can allow evil to invade their thoughts and their actions. And I visited many prisons. I was there when Hilton Crawford was executed. And I looked at it and I thought, this is in America. We are not immune to evil. I saw it. I saw someone take their last breath. And I have trouble. All my pets live to old age. And then we would have either they fell dead or they had to be euthanized because of health issues. That nearly would do me in. So I wasn't even sure I could go watch someone as deserving as Hilton Crawford was for the death penalty. But I did. And I'm glad I did. But it was just like out of an old horror movie from the 1950s. He was buckled down with straps that wide, and I'm standing there in that little box. There were no seats, thinking, Was it worth it? That's all I wanted to ask. Was it worth it? Was the scheming and the this and the that worth it? Or what were you thinking? What skewed, messed up thinking? Just out there. And you're going to die for it. Was it worth dying for? And think of the difference. Had he been out there and rescued a child from being run over or something, he'd have been a hero.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
But that decision
On the other side.
made him one of the hatest, most vile criminals in society. When you hurt a child, that is beyond the realm of just...
One of the worst things to...
It is horrible.
Mm-hmm.
It's horrible. But these are adults that ganged up on a little boy. If we know this much, because a lot was uncovered about Hilton Crawford and the Crawford family and everything. If we know this much, think about what we do not know about them. There's other things.
Two sides.
There's more. There's not just that one little thing. There's other things. But as difficult as it is to talk about McKay and what happened, it's really important for people to know that there are people who will harm your children. They will do them drastic harm. So be aware, and always be aware of your surroundings. But I never dreamed it would come to my back door. Don't be that person who thinks it won't ever happen to you. Don't let your guard down. Enjoy life, enjoy your child, but let them have the innocence. I call it the sanctity of childhood. It should be innocence and fun and in safe, and allow them to, like you were telling me about your little nephew who pulled out the ladder. Allow them to explore and to be adventuresome, but you control the safety in that environment.
That's well said. Mm-hmm. That's well said. Yes, ma'am. What was McKay's dream job growing up?
Well, it would depend on where we were at the moment. Once we were in New York City and we were riding in a taxi, and he decided, he told us later, he said, when I grow up, I want to come to New York City and I want to be a taxi cab driver because they drive fast. So it would really depend at his age on where he was. His consistent goal was that some field of medicine. He would say, I think I want to be a doctor. McKay was named after my grandmother's great-great-grandfather, Dr. McKay. And Dr. McKay was a horse and buggy doctor years and years ago.
What kind of hobbies was McKay into?
Music, for one. He played the piano, the drums, guitar, taught himself the violin. So he was into music. He loved that. Another hobby was spending time with his pets. He had 3 dogs, 3 cats. They were, all but one was a rescue. And he had one golden retriever named Penny, and we called her Penny Lover. And Penny, he would leash her up, and she would pull him around the neighborhood on his skateboard.
What was your favorite memory of McKay?
Some of them are, he didn't, every once in a while he called me Mom, but he would say, Woman. And Carl didn't do that. So I don't know where he got that, but that's okay. I thought his artistic side, he liked to write. He would paint on my easel at night. He was booched back down the stairwell, and I was painting with oils at that time, and people would say, "Why do you let him do that? He's painting over what you're painting." I said, "Because I can paint over his." He was, wasn't intimidated by people. We lived in several rent houses because we'd build a house, then sell it, then move it to a rent house, and then build another house. And we were living in this neighborhood, a house we call the Hacienda. It was a big old house. And our next door neighbors were Mr. and Mrs. Wong. And they owned, at that time, the Chinese restaurant. And later, Miss Wong told me, she said, "Paulette, when y'all moved in, he marched over, and she said, I answered the door, and he asked me if I had any children his age that he could play with." And she said, "I told him all my children were grown." And she said he had the most puzzled look on his face and said, "Do you know you're Oriental?" And she said we got the biggest laugh out of his just transparency and his just being McKay. And he was fast friends with Mr. and Miss Wong. And they had a wall around their, a brick fence around their property. And McKay would dress up with Indian headdress and, have his bow and arrow and everything. And we could walk around the wall, walk on top of the wall, and get to some of his friends' house, the Garcias. And one day he looked out, and he said there was a little window in that house, and he could curl up in that window and watch and see right over into Miss Wong's backyard. And Miss Wong had a persimmon tree because Mr. Wong liked persimmons. And one day he was watching, and he said, "What is she doing?" And I said, "Well, go ask her." Well, she was putting little pieces of pantyhose over the persimmons to keep the birds away from the persimmons.
Wow.
So, but could form relationships easily like that, and then just take an interest in what are you doing. And he was 50 questions. How does that work? And another hobby of his was he would sketch something that he wanted to build. And we had a little saw, and McKenna had a saw, and because we would build stuff. But he decided he wanted to build some wings for himself. And he made some huge wings thinking he could, and I thought, let him realize he cannot fly. I think little boys have to figure that out. I cannot fly.
Yeah, we learn.
We learn. A towel with a safety pin doesn't cut it either. And so that was another thing that he liked to do. And he liked performing. He would be just in a dither over his piano recitals and competition, because he did competitions. And but he was so excited when he would win a ribbon or he could take a bow.
Oh.
After he would play a piece on the piano and then take a bow. That pleased him, that he had accomplished that.
That gives you a smile on your face.
Yeah, he loved it. He loved it.
On McKay's headstone, it says, "How about them lions?"
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
Well, McKay had watched some little movie where that was said in the movie, and so he used that for his dad, because when we would drop him off at school, pick him up, things like that, he didn't want us kissing him and hugging him anymore. He just said, because he didn't want his friends. seeing that. So he just said, just say, how about those lines? And so that became the way we would say, I love you and have a great day. But he didn't want, his friends to think he was, a baby.
I think we've all been through that before. I think my parents have done that to me as well.
He was just growing up.
Oh, yeah, it's part of growing up. Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
May you talk about the Samuel McKay Everett Foundation?
When McKay was missing, and there was the ransom demand, and it was finally televised, that he was missing and there was a ransom demand, people began to send money, and it would be checks, it would be cash money. Some of the envelopes would have return addresses, some would not. And so we were left when McKay didn't come home. What do we do? And so we began the Samuel McKay Everett Foundation. Our mission is to help children be safe around people. Over the years, developed videos. We did a collaborative effort with the U.S. Department of Education and Houston ISD, and a professor from A&M and a professor from Sam Houston State University. And so we have videos that are they're available online at www.protectingchildren.com, and they're free for use. And then I'm working on a program right now for questions that parents can ask their schools about active shooters and child safety. And so I'm working on that right now. And our mission is as simple. How do we help children be safe around people?
Final question would be, do you still have any of McKay's possessions, and may you share them?
I have very little, and here's why. The FBI was called in because there was a ransom demand, and because of the Lindbergh Law. And so during that time, after McKay was found, Carl and I met with the FBI once a week for almost a year to prepare for the trial. And I think they wanted, to keep an eye on us status-wise. But they told us that during that time, it was a big deal online for people to purchase. If someone could get a hold of anything of McKay's, then they would sell it like trinkets and memorabilia. And so they suggested that we burn McKay's things, which we did. There was a little burn pit in the neighborhood where I was living, and I could take the golf cart, load things on the golf cart, and go over and burn them in that burn pit. And it's just kind of a moment of watching those embers go up in the sky, you kind of, it's hard. And then we were sent thousands of condolence cards. And so one night, and I didn't ever get to read all of them. They had to be screened before they were brought to the house because of the circumstances of McKay being abducted. So then I gathered all those up one day, and I called one of my girlfriends. And so I had a big, oversized mailbox just in a barn. So I got it, and I opened it, the door on that mailbox, and I turned it upside on its end. And so I'd read those condolence cards and then drop them in there and burn those. So
Do you still have any of them left, or? Okay.
No. And then it's kind of sad, because a lot of people can keep things for their kids, and when they grow up, then they can show it to them. So much was taken. People go, you think, well, you're taking McKay. Well, even things like that were taken, And so you go, My Lordy, you know, there have been days I go, was this all just a bad dream? We're meant to be uncomfortable. I don't think that we were meant to be put down here to be comfortable.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Here it is. This is where it all started. Tuesday, September 12th, 1995. This is really, it really feels real. Now, there's two driveways to this house. There's one in front and there's one in the back. The main one is used for like guests and whatnot, but the one on the other side is pretty much used for family members and whoever else. Now, we're gonna drive around to the back and show you exactly what happened. Like I said, we're driving around to the back of the house. And apparently the fence that you are seeing was not there when Miss Paulette, or the Everetts, bought the house. All right, there's the back driveway right here. Now I'm gonna park on the edge. So this is the road that Hilton Crawford came down September 12, 1995. This right here was the Everett's home back in 1995, like I said. Hilton Crawford came down this road about 8:30 at night to come pick up McKay, or kidnap, I should say. Well, McKay was on the phone with his, I think it was his girlfriend, who was Elizabeth, if I remember correctly. McKay heard a knock at the door. He noticed it was Hilton that was at the door. McKay turned off the alarm system and he let Hilton inside. Now, this is where it gets a little confusing. He did something to convince McKay to come out of the house. This happened about 8:33 around that time. Hilton sped out of the Everett's driveway. Now, let me turn the camera this direction. The person who used to live here was Bill. He was taking out the trash around 8:33, 8:35. And when he was taking out the trash, Hilton backed really far out into the road, onto their property. And he almost hit Mr. Bill. Well, he saw on the back of Hilton's car, Crown Motor. And it was like a goldish Chrysler that Hilton was driving. Well, as soon as Hilton drove off, let me turn the camera back around. This is the road where Hilton sped out. Later that night, Bill told the Everetts that he saw a car zooming right out of their driveway while he was taking out the trash, which almost ended up backing up and hitting him. Well, eventually they told the police about it, and that's how the dots end up getting connected back to Hilton Crawford. I'm out here in Conroe, Texas, and I believe I found the location of where Hilton Crawford was getting gas after he kidnapped McKay in 1995. I believe, like I said, this is the gas station where it happened at. What pump? I don't really know. Now, over to the left-hand side, there's a building right there. That was not there, or the gas station, convenience store was not there in 1995. That's brand new. Today it looks like they're either going to remodel it or demolish it, one of the two. I am coming up to the Atchafalaya Bridge. This is like one of the world's longest bridges over a body of water, besides Lake Conroe. driving on the Atchafalaya Bridge. It's 18 miles long. There's only 3 exits on this entire bridge. One is a welcome center, and the 2 are just other 2 exits for whatever reason. But this was the road that Hilton was driving on, or the bridge Hilton was driving on, back in September 12, 1995. I'm not sure how well you can see this, but we are 3 miles from Whiskey Bay, exit 127, LA 975.
In a quarter mile, take exit 127 for Louisiana 975 toward Whiskey Bay.
0.3 miles. There's the exit sign. Next right.
Take exit 127.
So this is where Hilton got off. Ooh, we gotta slow down. 127 Whiskey Bay.
In a quarter mile, turn right onto State Route 975.
Good Lord. We need to turn. Do I need to turn? Oh shoot. Hold on. I'm trying to. Oh, okay, I gotta keep going. Oh, okay, so this is my direction, and the other direction is for the cars. Okay, so should be on the left-hand side.
Turn right onto State Route 975. Then your destination will be on the right.
Should be on the right. Hold on, let me stop here for a second. Okay, so it should be up here somewhere. It's supposed to be down a paved, an unpaved road, like seashells or shells or something like that. Keep in mind, this was back in 1995. I think this has got to be the road right here. Shell road. Yeah, this has to be it. Behind a gated fence. Found it. Okay, I found what I'm looking for. I am here. I thought it was down that road, but apparently it's the one that's in front of me. So let me turn the camera around. And there was a shed that somebody was talking about at one point, and I believe this right here is the shed. Sorry about that. I got interrupted by somebody that was asking what I was doing. Anyways, the shed right here, I believe what Hilton said is his body was on the left-hand side in the brush, which has to be this right here that I am looking at. Hilton drew a map. Miss Paulette asked Connie Crawford for Hilton to draw a map of where McKay's body was located at, and what's her name? Miss Paulette said, I need you, Miss Connie Crawford, and her two boys to go down to the police station to draw a map of where McKay's body was, where McKay's body is located at. It has to be over here. This is the only spot that matches up to what I've been looking at, been doing my research and watching documentaries. Because let me turn the camera back this way. He was talking about a shed, so this has to be the shed that was here in 1995, September 12th. And this gate looks very close or resembles what I was looking at. And again, I think his body was discovered somewhere along this side. Eventually his body was discovered, and it was found, I think, 5 or 6 days after McKay went missing. And on the night that his body was located, I think it was like Friday morning or Saturday morning, early Sunday morning, one of the days. I think it's Sunday. And somebody called the police, I think somewhere in Louisiana, and told the sheriff that there is a missing person. Well, somebody finds McKay's body in early hours of the morning, like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And when the officer found the body, because he could smell it, it was a horrible smell. He flashed his light, and there was McKay's body. It was being ravaged by the wildlife that's out here, and his body was found face down. I'm walking down this pathway that looks like someone has already made. Oh, I see another shed. Wait, out there. But yeah, I'm pretty sure, I'm about maybe 90% sure his body was discovered somewhere in the area that you look at, because there's the shed that he was talking about, and there's also that shed right there, and they said it's on the left hand side of the shed behind a gate, and the gate is over there, which makes sense of right here. Seeing this place in person versus a picture is a whole different experience. This place is intimidating looking. This is where the lethal injections are done, and they're done right over there. If you see that little guard tower, in that little section right there. So right behind this wall is where the lethal injection is done at, also known as the death chamber. Here's a bird's eye view of what it looks like from Google Maps. And right here is where Hilton took his last breath. Those walls are 40 feet tall. Found the grave that I'm looking for, which is Hilton L. Crawford. He is the guy who kidnapped, tortured, and murdered McKay. I'm out here at Garden Park Cemetery in Conroe, Texas, and I'm here to show you the wife of Hilton Crawford. She recently passed away, and she is right here. So let me turn the camera around. Concetta and Peargi, I don't know if I'm even pronouncing that correctly. January 24, 1941 to September 2nd, 2024. This right here was Hilton's wife. McKay and Bill Klon is also buried here, and they're not far from where Hilton's wife is buried at. Samuel McKay Everett, March 1st, 1983 to September 13, 1995. At the bottom, it reads, "How about those lions?" Which pretty much means "I love you" to his dad. That right there is McKay's gravesite. And over here, Samuel Carl. This is his father. November 13, 1953 to April 1st, 2011. He died of a heart attack. McKay's gravesite is literally in the middle of your screen. Now as I pan the camera down, William B. Klon, also known as Bill. This is the man right here who was taking out his trash that night, Tuesday, September 12, 1995. He's the one who saw Hilton's car. If Bill's wife didn't tell him to take out the rest of the trash, it makes you wonder, where would this story stand today? Here it is. This is the house right here that Hilton lived in 1995. Now, on the day that he got arrested, the police were on one of these roads waiting for Hilton to leave because he was going to work at 7 a.m. Well, as Hilton was backing out of his driveway right here, one of the officers stopped him, parked right behind him, and he couldn't move. Again, there's Hilton's house. Now, next door right here is where Elizabeth lived. That was possibly McKay's girlfriend or friend. And yeah, it's crazy to think that they lived side by side. I'm out here at Memorial Park that is located in Montgomery, Texas, and right behind me is a memorial that was dedicated to McKay Everett. In memory of McKay Everett, you still touch our lives. And again it says, in memory of McKay Everett, March 1st, 1983 to September 12th, 1995. The people that put this together did a beautiful job. Landscaping, keeping it clean, all of that. It's a statue of a dog, which McKay loved dogs and pets in general. He had a couple kitty cats and dogs. Just look at that. Beautiful. Beautiful. There's a bone that's in his hand. And of course, the dog is trying to get it. I was looking for the artist's name on it, but I don't see it anywhere. Look at the shoes. These two books were given to me by Miss Paulette, and thank you so much. This is where I got a lot of my information from, and of course information from Miss Paulette herself. These two books talk about the trial, McKay's life, before McKay's life, his parents. There's just a whole bunch that's wrapped up in these two books. Some of this stuff didn't even make it into the final cut of my video, And if you enjoyed, or if you found something interesting about this particular case or the video and you want to know more about it, you need to read these 2 books. Highly recommend it. Deadly Betrayal and Waltz with Insanity. If you want to catch yourself a copy, I'll leave it down in the video description.